just like I promised you, today we have a chance to work on point slope form. Point slope form is the form y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So let's kind of break this down. X and y represent any point on this line. So they need to stay variables. The other stuff we can plug things into. Okay? So this x1, y1 are talking about 0.1, the xy pair of 0.1. And our m value, just like it has been in the past, is slope. Okay? Looks like a lot's going on. It's really not all that bad. So let's take a look at what we've got going here today. Let's write the form across the top so we know what we're working with. Remember, this is point slope form. And it is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, let's say that we are given some information. In this case, we're going to be given a point. Let's call it 2, -3. And we're going to be given a slope of 5. So we need to take this information and plug it in to our point slope form. Should be really easy because we have our point and the slope. So remember, in our point, we could call this x1, y1 because it's our one and only point that we have to work with, and m is the slope. So let's take the form that we have, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and plug in what we know. X and y stay variables. We're going to subtract our y1 value, set it equal to the slope times x minus the x1 value. So let's start with our y1 piece of information, which is a -3. Then we'll move on to our slope, which is 5. And our x1 value, which is a +2. Let's just clean this up a little bit. Y, right here we have a negative times a negative, which is a positive. So +3 equals 5 times the quantity, x minus 2. We don't need to go any further than that to have it in point slope form. Kind of nice, right? Don't have to continue on to the distributive property or any of that kind of stuff. We will once we convert to other forms, but to just put something in point slope form, that's as far as we need to take it. Let's do one more example like this. Let's see, if we're given the point for -1 and a slope of -1/2, and we're asked to put this in point slope form. we'll just take our y minus our y1 value, which is a negative 1, equals our slope, which is a negative 1/2, times x minus the x1 value, which is 4. We just clean everything up, make sure we're in simplest terms. Right here we have a negative times a negative, so that's a positive. And everything else we just write as is. And there you're in point slope form. Pretty straightforward, I think. All right, let's say that we're not given the information really in the way that we were hoping for it. Let's say that we were given 2 points. We have point 1, negative 2, and point negative 3, 4. And we need to put this information in point slope form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so we need a single point on the slope, and we actually have 2 points. So let's go ahead and find the slope first thing. So we know that we can find the slope by taking y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And this first point would be our x1, y1. The second point would be our x2, y2. Let's go ahead and plug that information in. We have y2 minus y1, which is 4 minus a negative 2, over x2 minus x1, which is a negative 3 minus 1. Negative times a negative is a positive, so this is really 4 plus 2 over negative 3 minus 1. 4 plus 2 is 6. Negative 3 minus 1 is a negative 4. That can be reduced down. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2. So there's our slope. So we can just plug that in right over here. I have a negative 3 halves. Notice that I moved the negative sign from down here in the denominator to just up level with the fraction line. A little bit easier to read that way, but it means the exact same thing. Okay, now we need a point 1 because we have an x1, y1 to deal with, but we don't need a second point. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that second point right now because we don't need it. Then I can plug in this other information. Here's our x1, which we can see right here is a positive 1. And we have our y1 value, which we can see is a negative 2. So let's write everything else in. We have y minus 2 equals m times x minus 1. So we have, we have y minus 2 equals a negative 3 halves times the quantity x minus 1. And there we have point slope form. A single point and the slope, even though we were given 2 points to begin with.